Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 22 of The Wanderer. And we start out in the beautiful confines of the Fijord, which is south of Eilat in an area that now is Egypt. Then Stevie and Lynn make their way back to Eilat. A couple days on the beach, hanging out, and then we wind up spending some days in the famous Waadi, which was a hippie community, and we'll describe that in some length. Then the couple wind up going with Steve, their buddy they pick up in the Waadi, and they hitchhike back to Jerusalem. Waking up to the situation you see behind me was quite incredible. And after spending a few days in the Fijord and a wonderful romantic night, Lynn and I got up and we dragged ourselves away from this incredible arena. And we hitchhiked back to Eilat, easy rides, because I've got a young lady with me. And of course, the Israeli military makes it very easy to get picked up and thrown in the back of a truck with other military people who are hitchhiking, going home, whatever. It's kind of a system of transportation that we were able to take advantage of. But we get our ways back and we find ourselves in Eilat again.
A week in the south of Israel. And at that time, you could go a lot further south because Israel controlled this whole Sinai Peninsula. But here we go, as you can see it. And basically speaking, you're at the north end of the Gulf of Aqaba, the south end of Israel. You can see how the sea kind of abuts in a blunt end. And we went from a place south of Taba, right here. Route 55 goes around the fjord, up along the coast, and then spending some days amongst the community in Eilat, on the beach south, Moish Beach, Eilat, and the Waadi, and then heading up, hitchhiking along the route and through Timnah, ultimately crossing over to Beersheba, and then making it late at night back to Jerusalem. Beersheba, Jerusalem, and then the following week in Jerusalem. Let's take a look at Eilat today. It's a modern tourist city. Didn't quite look like this 50 years ago. That's new, but the mountains are not. The sea is a big deal. The water is clear blue, crystal blue. Along the beach, the great lookout over the cities, one in Jordan, one in Israel, and the mountains beyond, which is reputed to be the real Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia, along the Gulf of Aqaba.
As I've said before, Eilat was a scene, a tourist scene, a hippie scene, a place where people lived, real Israelis. And the Red Sea Fish was the place where you go to hang out with all the hippies. And of course, I went there and I'm thinking about, do I work? I heard you could work down in Eilat, although I couldn't figure out how. Or do I just hang out? Where do I go from here? Do I go home? Do I make my way back up? Do I go to Afghanistan? What am I going to do with myself in my life and on this travel? I'm not sure. I sit at the Red Sea Fish again with the idea of working to cut my financial outflow of money. I was up at sunrise and sat at another place for an hour, also trying to find work. Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young's Deja Vu plays loudly, and I ponder whether to keep attempting to work or just get out of Eilat. It's supposed to be rather easy to get a job here, but who knows? Maybe I don't want one. Money, what a hassle. Soon I'll get up and probably go to the bank to cash a $10 traveler's check. I'm still with Lynn, but it must end soon. She won't leave, and I don't know, I'm not in love with her, and she's just not, making me crazy in love, and I want to be alone. I'm not in love, although I've enjoyed her on a lot of levels. The beach is all right. The sun is hot like fire. Soon I'll bust out of a lot of things. Eilat, Israel, social constriction, but just to find some other constrictions, what's the use? As I sit and think about my times 50 years ago, I'm incredulized by the differences in technology, in the way things just are. And this week was my first week back at work in the office every day. Wow. After being out of the office for a whole year, I was there every day. Wearing a mask sometimes, the pandemic is still on, but comparing my year away from everything 50 years ago to my year away from everything in many ways this year. It's an incredible comparison and contrast. And I found myself relying so much on technology that I would have been alone or feeling so alone, although at home with my lovely wife and my wonderful neighborhood and my lovely dog. But it's not the same as being in contact with humanity, when humanity was part of my wonderful travel. Wherever I went, there were people, and there were people on the road, off the road, people that lived where I went, and people that dared to make their way there with me as an intrepid traveler. Part of this, and a big deal, as Paulo Coelho described it in the book Hippy, was the invisible post, the finding out about places, the missing out of them and finding out of them, and therefore making that a big part of the travel. Behind me again is the Gulf of Aqaba, where Eilat and Aqaba share the northern part of this arm of the Red Sea. And here I am with Lynn, and I liken the culture of it to a frontier town of sorts, because it was rough. Although it had this element of Miami Beach as well, it still was rough. And Lynn and I wind up sleeping on the beach down a kilometer or few from the city along the Gulf for a couple of rough nights with travelers where we're hanging out. I still think I want to be home by the beginning of June. I don't know what to do about Afghanistan. Here I am in the Red Sea Fish and the Woodstock album's blaring. I feel the spirit of it. There's a pretty lady near me. She likes the music too. Why am I on my way home? I still feel the pull of my home on me. Pressures from the letters from people at home, expecting me and telling me how they look forward to seeing me, puts pressure on me. I guess I'm not free anyway. At this time, I'm reading Notes from the Underground by Dostoevsky. I must think I'm some kind of a intellectual. I feel I would be remiss if I did not help you to focus on the power of the land and the way that the brown mountains came down to the sea, starting in this incredible Fijord area and heading back, hitchhiking along the sea, getting back to Eilat. And I'd like you to just see a little bit of Eilat to get a background. Here it is today, looking glamorous. become a tourist spot. We always had this, that's for sure, because I witnessed these fish myself in my scuba gear and otherwise. We find a really cool park in the middle of the city, and Lynn and I spent a lot of time there. We're smoking, we're grooving on the softness with a great high that this stuff from Lebanon brings us. We come out to the heat of the beach and the beautiful blue of the water, the Red Sea and the brown mountains rising high above Aqaba on the Jordanian side. It's quite a place, but Eilat can be a bit tiresome. Time goes by swiftly. I feel like I've got to travel on. I've been cooped up long enough on the kibbutz, and even here I feel constrained. I need to get on the road and groove again. The next part of my journey is really staying put in a fantastic village of hippies in a dried up riverbed called the Waadi. This was really something special because it was a community. It was like being at Woodstock, people helping each other, people eating together, itinerant people, regular people, hippies, a lot of hippie types just walking around. And they made these houses out of old crates and finding remnants of pieces of walls and stuff and built them into these kind of cave-like structures. Anyway, we spent a few days there, and it's a shanty city for travelers and freaks. That's the way I describe it. Good people, great hash, good times. And we stayed in a cave-like structure that was built under the ground. Gary, an Australian, handed it over to Lynn and I to sleep in, kind of like he was moving on. So he said, hey, take this. We kind of got in with these guys in that area. And then we fall in with really a great guy named Stephen Mahoney. He's English, and he's just a sweet guy. And we had these parties at night. They were great parties in Steve's shack that night in the Waadi. And I really got into my flute playing for the whole party. I really entertained. We were desperate for entertainment, I guess. But the flute becomes a huge thing for me. People dig it, and I was digging it. It was really kind of a fun part of being part of the community to provide the music, and people enjoyed it, so did I. Week 23, next week, it's all about Jerusalem and the incredible spiritual adventure, meeting people who gave us New Testaments, Old Testaments, Bhagavad Gitas, you name it, walking around with the Spirit, meeting up with evangelicals, and having just an incredible time until the Sabbath when Lynn and Stevie get back to the kibbutz.
What's a wadi? I inquire. Wadi is an Arabic word that basically means a dried up riverbed. What do you think, Lisa? Do you want to go? Sure she does, urges Gary. Yeah, okay, let's do it, says Lisa. I'm packed and ready to roll. We journey along with Gary, who leads us to his place at the Waadi, several kilometers out of Eilat. When we arrive, I'm enthralled by the shanty village of travelers and hippie freaks. Gary takes us into a hollowed-out cave-like structure underground. He has his own shanty setup, a comfortable little camp. The cave runs the length of the former riverside as far as I can see. Shanties, tents, and campsites are filled with freaks like me. Good people, fun times, great hash. This is a groovy place. Hey, mates, I'm leaving to continue on my travels tomorrow. I bequeath my shanty to you, says Gary to Lisa and me. Sleep in it tonight, stay an extra day, then give it to someone else in need when you leave. Sounds great, thank you, I say as we shake hands. We spend the night in the shanty, sleeping on the floor. In the morning, Gary has already departed. We decide to stay another day at the Waadi. I start a small campfire and boil some water in a teapot that goes with the place. Lisa is still in the cave-like underground structure, sleeping. A long-haired hippie freak, one of the few rustling about, comes over to my camp. Hey, how are ya? I'm Steve Mahoney from England. We shake hands. I'm Steve too, but people call me Woodstock. Wow, you were one of the 500,000 there? I've met quite a few travelers who attended Woodstock in 1969. It was a fabulous event, man.